Hey, welcome to the Art Condition Podcast, a weekly show that will discuss the business, community, and often undiscussed stress and mental health concerns of being a professional artist, or even a serious hobbyist. I'm Joby. I've been in the tattoo and illustration professions for 25 years. My co-host is Moose, a data analyst, social media manager, and art agent. If you enjoy the content, please consider visiting the Patreon page in the show notes to help support the effort. Or if that's not an option, please like, subscribe, leave a good review, or just share with your friends. And definitely go visit the links of our guests on this episode. Thanks for listening, and have a great day. This week we are talking to Trisha Hall. Trisha is a case study in ambition and energy, and what we can accomplish in a very short amount of time when we are dedicated, persistent, and willing to move quickly between a variety of business experiments. Trisha's approach of, quote, throw it all against the wall and see what sticks, has proven to be very useful and a rewarding method for distilling the best among a large group of options. We talked to Trisha at length about her approach to business, her art, and how the two go together. We also talk about some of the social media niches that Trisha has experimented with, what the outcomes have been, and what the lessons are that we can take away from her wins and her losses. Trisha's energy is infectious, and I promise you will walk away with a lot of new ideas to inspire your own business and marketing. Or at the very least, you will just enjoy hearing Trisha talk with passion and enthusiasm about what she loves. Let's listen. And the record button is going. All right, everybody's here. Everybody's ready. Present and accounted for. Trisha, thank you so much for being with us. This is
Thank
exciting.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, been a admirer of yours. I was going to say a fan, but that always feels so awkward. I've been a big fan of yours. I've been an admirer of yours for a long time, not just because of the art, but the energy and enthusiasm you have. I feel like if I watch your TikTok videos and your Twitch streams, then maybe some of that will like seep in through osmosis.
Oh, well, thank you.
Can learn this. So that's what we're hoping, is that like maybe you'll be able to illuminate the rest of us on how to be so good at this when so many people seem to be.
Funny.
Go ahead.
Oh, it's just funny. When I first joined Twitch, I was connected with a couple different artists, and so many of them were like, oh, Joby Dore, you need to connect with Joby Dore. You need to watch his streams. He's a pillar of the art community. And so I always looked up to you in that respect. It's wild. It's funny how our perceptions of people on the internet are shaped by that.
Yeah, because nobody should look up to Joby Dore.
No, definitely not. I don't even want to know who said that, because I'll be tempted to, like, hey, you
it was
stop,
more than one person.
Stop spreading lies. Well, let's start by getting a little bit of background on you. Where did you come from?
Sure.
How did you get here? How did you get stung by the mad, rabid art bug?
I'll be honest, when you first started that, I thought you were just going to start singing Cotton Eye Joe. Where do you come from? Where do you go?
I wish I was that good.
But in seriousness, I was raised in a pretty artsy house. So I just kind of have a bit of a background in understanding what being your own business owner kind of looks like, because my parents make musical instruments out of glass for a living. So that was definitely like an interesting role model to see. They both work from home. So that definitely got me started. They would both, anytime there were any kind of creative endeavors, my dad always used to say that, he would just throw everything at the wall and whatever sticks, great. As far as hobbies, and so he'd buy me sketchbooks. He bought me a violin when I was mildly interested in playing violin, a saxophone when I thought maybe I wanted to do that. I ended up playing silver flute in band, but I eventually went to university. I intended to be to go into the music ed program. I was teaching piano for a few years, and I stopped doing that so I could go into higher education. I met my partner there. I ended up painting him like a watercolor piece for a Christmas present, and he posted it on Twitter and Reddit, and it kind of blew up. And I got a lot of encouragement from that. And I was like, huh, I wonder, maybe this art thing that I've never tapped into could be a thing. So I took a beginning art class. And that was all she wrote. I dropped everything, switched majors. 3 years later, I got a BFA in fine art, and here we are. I've been painting for about 5 years now.
That sounds a little familiar to me, but I chose to stick with the major I was on. My drawing teacher said, "Mike, you're like really good at this. You should, if you want to switch majors, I will sponsor you." And then I was like,
Wow.
I think biology is going to pay more. I'll stick with that.
You were
There
the
you go.
wisest among us.
Well, I knew for me, because I went for music ed, but I never took a single music course while I was at school. Like, I joined the music living learning community, but then I was just so intimidated by the program. It was really competitive. And I was just like, oh, I don't know about this. And so I ended up taking a bunch of theater courses. I declared as a theater pre-major and did all the prerequisites for that. I was about to like enter the program, and then I got distracted by that one beginning painting course, and that was everything.
It's really awesome that happened so quickly. It was like such a immediate. That's probably one of the best feelings in life, is that clarity, like that type of clarity.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's just because that's such a rarity in life to have that much clarity? That seems kind of sad when I think about it and say it out loud.
That's the beauty of it. I think that's the beauty of it.
Okay, well, that's fair. So art school, coming out of art school, what was your intent to do? You know, it's like some people are like, what are you going to do with an art degree? You know,
Right.
and Moose is like, I'm going into biology. So what were your thoughts coming out of school as far as, you know, what your plans were?
I felt entirely lost, and like I went to art school. I'm like, okay, art is what I want to do. They handed me this piece of paper that like I'm a real artist apparently, and then threw me into the world, and I'm just like, ah! So I feel like I've been flying by the seat of my pants for a couple years now. And I think realizing that I'm not the only one doing that, that's what adulthood is, was really eye-opening. But yeah, when I first got thrown into the world, I felt like art school really prepped me for the fine art world, and they didn't really teach me any other options or any other ways to be successful. And I kind of needed to reevaluate what my goals were, because applying to all of these juried art shows and trying to get like my highbrow fine art from school scene, I felt a lot of imposter syndrome, and it didn't feel quite right. I knew that there was a path for me, and I hadn't quite found it yet. There are so many ways to make a living as an artist, and it took me a few years to figure out what that was. But I used my art as a way to kind of process these feelings of being lost and aimless and wondering if my approach was the right way or not. And I've kind of used my art as a way to kind of document my personal growth as far as that's concerned. I took a job as a custom framer for 2 years and worked part-time. And that was fun. I worked at Michael's. I got a great discount on art supplies. It was a steady, reliable job, but it was hard to find a healthy balance between the stuff I really wanted to do and just taking home a paycheck that was reliable. But in August last year, I put in my 2 weeks. I quit and I started streaming in the same month. I had no idea what was ahead of me, but I knew that my job was holding me back, and I needed to take that plunge. And gosh, best decision I ever did.
So we've talked on the show a number of times where outside of fresh out of college, there's like no straightforward path to a
Mm-mm.
career. And you mentioned just a few minutes ago. So since your departure from Michael's, which resources have you been using to, guide you towards?
Yeah. Well, I think just starting on Twitch was more for me a way to. I really struggled with self-discipline, and I knew that in order to be your own boss and to be an independent artist, that is a crucial skill. And I knew it was a weakness of mine. So I knew that was the first thing I needed to focus on, was building this iron self-discipline, and I'm still working on it. It's a constant struggle and journey, but streaming was just a way for me to clock in. So I was like, I want to paint 3 times a week, so I'm going to set a schedule, and I don't care if anyone shows up, but I'm punching the timer and I'm going to put the work in. And it blossomed into something so much more than I ever thought it could be. I've made some wonderful relationships. I've built a community of artists and creatives, and I'm just so blessed to have them. They've encouraged me so much and made me feel like being my most authentic self and following what felt right was the right path. And I think without that validation, it would have taken me a lot longer to find myself.
Was it concurrent to streaming that you started also developing like a business model, or a sense of how you would go about structuring your presence online, and okay, well, what kind of products am I going to be selling and stuff like that as well?
So I had an Etsy for quite a few years. I think I opened up my Etsy shop back in like 2016, like right when I started painting, and I'm like, I'm going to be an artist, and I set that up as soon as I possibly could and started throwing as like any creations I could into that shop. And it was pretty slow moving for many years. But I didn't stop. I had my Instagram. I've had that since around the same time frame. But it wasn't until I started streaming on Twitch that I actually hit 1,000 followers on Twitch the same day I hit 1,000 followers on Instagram. And I'd had Twitch for a matter of months and my Instagram for years. And it made me kind of reevaluate the kind of content people wanted to see from me and realize that it's not just my art that's valuable. It's me, it's my journey, it's my story. And people feel much more connected to my work if they feel like they know me or they can see my process. So then I decided to make the jump to TikTok. A bunch of people had kind of egged me on to do it, and I had no idea what I'm doing. I still feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. But I hit the jackpot and had a few posts go viral, and now I'm sitting at like 9,000 followers or something, which is kind of surreal, but I'm really trying not to pay too much attention to it because lately a lot of my posts haven't been getting as many views as you would expect them to. So I think it's really important to have kind of a healthy relationship with social media. It's such a crucial part of our presence online, but like I also kind of want to sit with it like a 6-foot pole in between us. Like I don't want to get too wrapped into it because it can be very detrimental if you're not really careful with it.
Yeah, those likes can be a source of pleasure or extreme pain. If you're like,
Absolutely.
wait, I'm supposed to be getting 60 likes per second in order to hit the milestone that I want, but I'm only getting 20 likes per second. That means I'm going to fall way short because the algorithm wants all the stuff immediate.
Yes. Well,
and algorithms change, and things aren't always consistent, and that's something that we've mentioned a bit on this podcast before. To have variety and have other irons in the fire, because things can change and you can't rely on one thing to do it all for you. But going back to the development of your sort of business sense and business,
I glossed over that, didn't I?
No, yeah, but don't worry about it.
Let's circle back.
Tangents are more than welcome. So in this phase, like everybody kind of goes through this period of not knowing enough to know what you don't know.
Yes.
When you're in that, again, kind of like coming out of art school, trying to find your way, where were you looking as far as like for guidance and getting ideas for how to start? Like you said, you started an Etsy, but it's one thing to just like make an Etsy store, and then it's quite another thing to actually start making money. And that goes for any kind of sales presence that you have online. So yeah, from just like opening a store to actually like making sales, what were you looking for in terms of like learning how to make that happen?
Well, this question, when I was looking through the list of questions, was actually my favorite that you put together, is in that phase of not knowing enough and like where was I looking for guidance? I was looking anywhere and everywhere, desperately trying to find someone to look up to as a role model that lived the life I wanted to live. And I couldn't find anyone. There were so many artists that were so successful in their own perfect circles, but it wasn't the life I wanted for me. And eventually, I realized that I just got super fed up with it and said, you know what? I'm going to pave my own path. I'm not going to wait for someone else to be a role model and I can follow in their footsteps. I have an inkling of an idea of what I don't want, so I won't go there. I'm going to stop pursuing the fine art world. I'm going to stop applying to gallery shows because I'm just hemorrhaging money applying and constantly getting rejected. And I don't think that the art that I truly wanted to make was suitable for that audience anymore. So I made the jump to start selling my art at Renaissance fairs, actually. My parents vend their flutes there, and I kind of followed in their footsteps. Ren Fair has been like a huge part of my social life, and I just love it. So I started selling little painted eye lockets, like lover's eye lockets, that were popularized. I used to know my history when I had my whole spiel, but it's been a little bit. I got one of the King Henrys popularized. I could be wrong on that too. Let's abort. No, I'm kidding. But they were popularized having these painted lover eye lockets, and it's really special because the person who receives the locket, you can look into someone's eye and you can see so much. You recognize the person, but to someone else, it's like anonymous, and so there's kind of this mystery about it. And so I wanted to kind of bring that to Ren Fair. And it was fun, and I started doing really well. I got my first taste of what working art shows or craft fairs or anything like that was kind of like, and I got a lot of good feedback. But eventually, I kind of got to a point where it started to feel a little stale, and I realized that it had become more of a craft rather than an art. And there's no shame in being a craftsman or a craftswoman, but it wasn't fulfilling work for me. There was a formula to it. I'm painting an eye. You paint an eye and you paint 20 of them and you paint 50 of them and it's still an eye. And a lot of the commission work was the most popular part. So I would put a lot of time and effort into creating an inventory for people to see what I'm capable of, but that wasn't what was selling as much. So I felt like it wasn't the best fit. So I made the decision to stop vending at Ren Fairs, or that 2020 would be my last year. COVID hit, and I was like, oh, well, I guess the universe is telling me I'm really done. I had forgotten to clean out the trunk of my car from the previous Ren Fair, and by the time I'd opened it, all of the moisture from my camping tent and everything had completely molded all of my inventory or like the display cases. So the inventory was actually saved, but everything that I needed to display my work in that particular venue was destroyed. So I listened to the universe and said, okay, that's not the right path. What's a better path for me? And that's when I turned to Twitch. After a few months in Twitch, I decided to take the jump to open my own e-commerce shop on my own website, because I had my own website, but I went through this whole process of rebranding and trying to be a little more authentically me. It's been some really good steps, but yeah, I still have my Etsy, but I don't promote it as much anymore. Oh, did we lose Moose?
Yeah, we forgot to mention that just periodically happens. He'll be right back. Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay. Cool. Perfect. So yeah, that was a really interesting turn of events for me. But I am definitely a lot happier creating work that I would consider maybe a little more lowbrow, not what I would see in like uppity art galleries. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I just started focusing more on what I thought people would actually want to purchase because I realized I wanted to pursue more monetary success rather than receiving like recognition and prestige or uh, what I determined as the three pillars of artistic success were artistic excellence, monetary success, or recognition and prestige. And I kind of thought to myself, like, why am I pursuing recognition and prestige without focusing on perfecting my craft first? So I set out to improve my craft and realized that I wanted to measure my success more by from a monetary standpoint and actually making a living from it.
So while the banana taped to the wall might be monetary excellence, it's not artistic excellence. Is that what we're saying?
Um, I think it depends on the artist. I think that's definitely one of the funny things that people keep bringing up to me specifically, which is quite funny because I'm actually banana phobic. I hate bananas; they make me nauseous. So it's funny that you brought that up. One of my Twitch emotes is literally just like a big banana, if you will. um, but I think artistic excellence has more to do with feeling fulfilled in your work. At least for me, I don't think that there's a way. I mean, sure, other people can give you awards and say your art is really great, but I would say that would fall into like the recognition and prestige part. But if you're truly feel like you're doing your best, that's what I would call artistic excellence. Um, so that's kind of what I started to pursue as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, it's like a lot of things, like who your audience is. Like the banana tape to
Mhm.
the wall is hot, steaming garbage to a lot of people.
Sure.
And then to some people, it's like, yeah, that's the highest form of art. As well as, who you're selling to and your audience in all things is sort of like the ultimate context. So that's really I've never heard it framed in that way, like the three pillars that you mentioned. Is that something that you came up with on your own, or did you stumble upon that?
I think it's. I mean, I looked at a lot of other sources and kind of saw how other people determined what being successful as an artist meant. But then I started writing my own blog, and that was what I would argue is one of my most earlier successful posts, was kind of breaking that down. And I did it mostly for me, but I thought it was valuable information to share. So I wanted to just put it out there. It's also a good way to improve SEO to my website to have those kind of keywords linking to my page. So that was another goal.
Yeah, it's awesome that you mentioned the blog. I didn't include it in the preliminary questions, but if there is time, I do actually want to get back to that. One of our previous guests, we talked a lot about monetizing through blogging, which is, I don't know, it's still fascinating to me.
That's still new to me too. I'm like, I don't know how to monetize it, but it's definitely it's scratching a creative itch. When I was really young, I actually wanted to be an author, and I set a life goal to publish a book. And then I altered that goal to say, well, maybe I can just publish a book of my piano compositions. That counts, right? But now I'm thinking, I actually have something to say, and I do really enjoy writing, like writing essays and stuff. It was like one of my favorite courses in like high school and stuff. So having an outlet to share what I think is valuable in a form of writing is another art form for me.
Just a quick aside, the way to monetize a blog in like a 2-minute span of the spiel is you take whichever blog articles are the most successful, getting the most traffic, and then you make a course or a tutorial out of them, and then you sell that tutorial. And similarly, the blog traffic is now, as a whole, also going to go provide additional traffic to either your web store or other tutorials that are in the same field.
I would only add on to that there's also advertising and then like affiliate, where if you can get in, Amazon affiliate is like the best known, than if you can get in with, other like manufacturers, or suppliers of other products that are related to your field of interest. And you can kind of like arrange a deal that like certain amount of clicks or certain amount of like page views or what. Anyway, yeah,
That's just less for artists though, because there isn't as many affiliate links for artists as there are for like lawnmowers or whatever.
More than you might think.
Let's move on. But yeah.
The first thing I thought of would be like putting ads on my blog or something, and I didn't want to do that. But I don't think I get that much traffic. But I write for me, not for. I mean, if people want to find that information, or if someone in my Twitch stream asks a question that I know would be like a 30-minute conversation, then I've already had that conversation before. Sometimes I'll just say, "Hey, that." 5 things I wish I knew. Things I wish I knew as a beginning artist. Like that's a blog post on my website. You can read it and like come back to it later. Really,
Those things also make good Twitter threads if you ever are so inclined.
Noted. I'm still pretty new to Twitter as well. I think I saw you had a question later on that was something along like how I have so many different social medias. But I think I am really just kind of covering all my bases here. There's a different audience on every platform, and it's not that you need to create brand new content for every platform. You just want to. It needs to be visible. You need people to see it. You shouldn't feel bad about double posting or anything like that. Like you've got a different, unique audience on each platform, and you don't want certain people to miss it.
And similarly, you shouldn't feel bad about double posting on the same platform because chances are there's a lot of people that wanted to see it that didn't see it the first time around.
Totally. I learned an interesting statistic, and I'm not sure how true it is, but I think it was something along like less than 20% of your followers actually see the content that you post, which is just honestly appalling. And if you look on my TikTok, I have over 9,000 followers, and my videos get on average about 200 views. And the algorithm switched and no longer favors the content I put out, but I'm still putting it out. I post the same content on Instagram Reels. Sometimes I'll edit it down a little bit because Reels are only 30 seconds, where you can do a little bit longer on TikTok if you so feel inclined. And the same exact posts, like I'll make the post, and within a couple minutes, I'll get a notification saying, "Hey, your reel has 1,000 views," and I'm like, "I just posted it. What do you mean?" And then I'll look on TikTok, and it's like, "You have 13 views." And so it has no reflection on the quality of your content. It's purely algorithm. So don't let it get you down.
And while we're on this topic, briefly, I can interject. Also, YouTube has their own shorts, which is basically the same thing. So if you're not on that platform, you can always jump into the same stuff.
YouTube is brand new to me. I have just created a YouTube, and I've got like my VOD archive there, and that's been kind of new to me. I'm trying to figure it out. Video content is king right now, and I am so out of my comfort zone creating it or editing it or anything like that. So baby steps, but that was my New Year's resolution for 2021 was to create a YouTube and get more video content out there.
There was recently a video on like YouTube hacks of how to grow your YouTube channel, and basically the thing is right now it's really prioritizing those shorts. So
I think short content in general, people have really small attention spans. So the more concise content you can make, or the most information you can pack into the smallest amount of time, is usually going to be your most successful content.
And in this case, it happens to be that that's also the new thing on Instagram, on YouTube. So when YouTube puts out a new thing, they want people to use it. If they're not using it, then the people who are using it will be the ones that are pushed to the forefront. So not a lot of people were using it, and now people that do use it are getting a boost for free.
I think the same thing on Instagram once they introduced Reels to try to compete with TikTok. If you're trying to use Instagram the same way you've been for the last 3 or 4 years, you're not getting any views on your content. Like it has to be video, otherwise people aren't going to see it. Or try the go live feature or anything like that, which I haven't quite dabbled in too much because I'm live on Twitch, but I know I should.
There was that one post not too long ago about why your Instagram engagement is crap. And it was basically like a list of all the new features that Instagram has added over the last few years and how many times they want to use it per week. And if you're not doing it as much as they're saying, then they're going to scale down your engagement.
Yeah, the big drag is that video content, it just takes so long. I think it's, and I know
Yes.
that you can reuse, excuse me, like all of your TikTok content. You could probably reformat into a YouTube short, right?
Definitely.
But even making those initial posts, it's like, oh God, that's like, how long is this going to take me? And am I going to start obsessing about editing the video? I don't know. It's way more.
I have certainly found a bit of, I don't want to call it a hack, but since I am a total noob at video editing, I don't even own like any like real software for it yet. I haven't taken the plunge. I used to record all of my content within the TikTok app, but it was so glitchy, I was infuriated with it. I ended up downloading UCut Video Editor, and that's what I've been using so far. And it's all just on my phone. And I'm able to adjust the clips. I can add music. I can add all the things. But you can save it, and then post it on multiple platforms without that watermark that they do if you try to download the video. And I'm able to, I just recently posted a packaging video of like an order packaging video, and I created one version for TikTok that was a bit longer, and then it was too long to be posted to Instagram Reels. So I sped up certain segments and trimmed it a little bit. So it's the same content, but just a little more concise, and posted it there. And it gave me the freedom to do that. So I'm really glad I found that out.
Can you import in video from like Twitch into that app, or is that too hard?
I don't see why not. It is a phone app, so I think if you had that video content on your phone already, I don't know if there's a desktop version or anything like that, but I imagine that would be a lot easier on the computer. But yeah, I just like use my camera, record a bunch of clips, and then upload them all to the thing and adjust everything.
Yeah, I was just thinking. Sorry, go ahead.
Taking it out of Twitch, I mean, hypothetically, you could make a little highlight.
Mm-hmm.
Download that, then send it to the cloud, then download it onto your phone. It's a little bit more of an involved process, but I mean, since you're already making so much content on Twitch, that you basically have like this huge resource of potential clips and content. So might be a
brilliant thing that I have not tapped into yet. All of my content on social media is not from the existing content I have on Twitch. It is all uniquely created for it. And I feel like I've really spread myself thin and led myself to burnout by doing that. Just because I haven't wanted to learn how to edit my existing long form content. So I think I've made it harder on myself by avoiding that.
So this idea of being hard on yourself is a good segue back to your emerging life as a business person, because being an independent artist is a lot of work, and arguably there are things that you could do with your life that might make it a lot easier, relatively speaking. But what prompted you to really dedicate yourself to this?
I would say COVID in general was such a blessing and a curse. I didn't have very much, or I never really took the time to sit with my own thoughts and really do much life reflection, and it provided me the space and time to do so, because I was my job as a custom framer, it closed for a while, and I was on unemployment for a few months. And that just gave me such an eye-opening awakening to the kind of work I could be doing if I wasn't spreading myself so thin with a part-time job on top of it. I'm sorry, what was the question again?
Well, I was being a little cheeky that, there's things that you could do to make your life a little bit easier, aside from trying to be, a professional independent artist. So, like, what was it that made it seem worth it to you to like want to take on that burden and make art, your life and your career? I
don't feel like it was a decision that I decided to do. It was always kind of a certainty for me at an early age. I knew, regardless, before I even knew I wanted to be an artist, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew I wanted to follow in my parents' footsteps and create my own business in some way. I was always trying to come up with interesting, odd jobs and businesses when I was a kid. Like I created a little baking business where I would make cookies for my neighbors and stuff, or would mow lawns or whatever. I always wanted to create this crazy structure and marketing for it. Like as a kid, it was a fun thing for me. And I think having my parents as role models, it really made me see what that life looks like. And sure, they work a lot, but they also got to work from home and got to spend more quality time with family. And I think that was just really valuable. And I knew I wouldn't be happy or content working for someone else. And so I think that was regardless of whatever career I ended up in, I knew that I needed to have the flexibility to jump from thing to thing. And who knows, maybe in 10 years from now, I'm going to be focused more on teaching piano lessons again. Who knows? But I want that flexibility.
It sounds like you were an entrepreneur first. I mean, not that it's sort of a chicken and egg kind of thing.
Sure,
But
yeah. I haven't put much thought into it, but it's like now that it's kind of coming out here on the podcast. But yeah, I think I always knew I wanted to own my own business. I think that was definitely a goal of mine. And it's quite surreal to be sitting here on this podcast talking about my art career. Because in a lot of ways, I feel like I've still just started my journey. But
well, I hope that's in a good way.
oh no, it absolutely is.
All right, because even now actually that I'm saying that entrepreneur. I mean, so like the essence of being an entrepreneur is creativity, I think. So at the heart of it, it's sort of like one, the entrepreneurial spirit lends itself very well to, being an artist, and yet still many artists seem very inhibited by the entrepreneurial spirit, or have some resistance against developing that, so people that really take to it with gusto are intriguing. I guess that's not that you're like a scientific experiment, but
sure. No, I can see how you could say that it's intriguing. I think a lot of people are kind of scared to give things their all. Like they'll dip their toes, they'll try things and see if it's going to work, but I don't think anything's really going to work until you actually pour your heart and soul into it and give it all you got. That's true for my abilities as an artist, for growing my business, for streaming, any endeavor I've ever put my mind to. I didn't start to see any growth until I poured my everything into it.
Yeah, I was going to say that I would estimate roughly 90% of artists that I've talked to have thought about getting good at art first and then not thought about business at all until they were actually already good and then somehow needed to make money with that skill that they developed. So they weren't ready to be entrepreneurs. They weren't ready to be self-owned businesses. They just were thinking, all right, now I'm good. Now where's the money? Right?
Yeah. Well, there is going to be a unique audience for every type of art, regardless of the skill level. And there hopefully are people in your lives that will support you and encourage you at any level that you are. One can hope that you have that kind of support system. But no one ever feels ready. So I think the most important thing is to just get out there and start doing it before you're ready. Because there's never going to be a point where you do feel ready. And that was the best advice I ever received about starting streaming, but I think it applies to literally every facet of your life. There's so much to be learned on the job. You'll start it with a certain iteration of what you've got. And then, I can't tell you how many times I've edited my content or my website, like the content on my website in like a different way, or changed the overlay on my Twitch stream. Gosh, probably at least 20 times since I started, trying to find what was just right. But you gotta put in some time, get some experience under your belt before you can even really start. It feels like, so don't hesitate, because you have to get your ducks in a row. You're going to be constantly trying to put them in a row for years as you're along the journey. Like don't wait to get have it perfect before you start, because it never will be.
Especially not Twitch overlays. Those are never perfect. You'll always
Never.
work on those.
The parallels there to a piece of artwork are it always never ceases to amaze me. You know, like how many parallels there are. You know, you just have to do it. If you just spend all of your time thinking about the piece of art that you want to make or being intimidated by it, you're never going to start it. It's never going to exist at all, and that's like way worse than it being not what you expected, because it's you know, only you're probably going to think that it's bad. It might not turn out to be the way that you expected it, but it's never going to be bad. So just do it.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be a masterpiece.
Couldn't agree more. I think that that's a thing that a lot of artists fall into this trap of. They have an idea and they just keep building up the grandeur of what it's going to be until they can't even, they're paralyzed to make the first step because they're never going to do the idea justice. And that is just the biggest disservice you can do to your own creativity. Like, if you're blessed with a wonderful idea, get it out on paper, get it out on the canvas. And if you want to make it perfect, recreate it, do it again to iron out the kinks. But workshopping and planning is only going to get you so far. And it's far better to truly do it than to plan.
I like to set the fire under people by calling them selfish if they don't.
I love that.
Yeah, if you've got a great idea, you know, it's like, well, you can say that you're inhibited by your own insecurity, but what you're really doing is just robbing the rest of the world of this like awesome idea by keeping it secret. Like, if somebody else gave you this like super cool, great thing that was going to make the world a better place, like, wouldn't you kind of be a jerk if you were going to hoard it all to yourself? So even if it's your own idea, it's kind of the same thing, right?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree. I read a book, Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. It's a book on creative living, but she has a really interesting idea about the inception of ideas and how when you have an idea and you decide that you're going to enact that into your work, you create this agreement with the idea. And if you don't pull through on your end of the bargain, that idea will leave you. You'll lose the motivation, and it won't, like, you're not 2 years down the road, if you still have this idea and you've never done it, like, it's stale. You're not going to come back to it. And she has this interesting idea of these ideas. They come to us, but if we don't fulfill them and manifest them, they will find someone else. And it's not, you shouldn't worry so much about making your idea original and new, because we're humans. We all have the same human brain, and we've been pondering the same questions and philosophies for years and years and years. But the way that you bring it into existence is where the originality comes. So you don't want to lose that opportunity to manifest that idea in your own way, because someone else will do it if you don't do it first.
Yeah, there's no new ideas under the sun.
No.
There's that really great series I suggest everyone watch called Everything is a Remix on YouTube. And it just says, like, you know, as much as you want to think that Led Zeppelin was brand new, they were just a rhythm and blues, but with a slightly different twist to it. And they were even straight up ripping off some old lyrics from other songwriters, and they never got sued, and they also never sued anybody when they themselves were ripped off. So it's all interaction with what you're exposed to and then how you change it.
Yeah.
So this idea of, excuse me, just jumping right in, kind of figuring it out as you go, reminds me of what you mentioned earlier about I think it was your dad, was just kind of throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And that becomes apparent, I think, when looking at...
Apparent, you say?
Hey, the zing. How dare you? It becomes obvious when we see, you know, how much stuff you are doing, all of these different things that you're trying online, and all of the products that you offer too. That was one thing that sort of like struck me as, I was sort of getting a feel for all of what you were doing. Yeah, there's so much. There's lots of it. I have a lot of questions about
Please.
about
Please.
the quantity. The quality is obviously great. Well, first of all, like, where do you like to get your products made? Because you have so many different things.
They're all from different sources, so that's a hassle in itself. But I have my prints. I have printed through MPix, which is an online printing company. I've tried a couple different ones, but MPix by far has the highest quality, in my opinion, as far as like the colors of my work seem incredibly accurate. They have a G-clay print option and 3 different paper qualities, so I'm able to choose one that suits my needs. I choose the fine art paper. It's like got kind of a subtle watercolor texture to it. And I've always just been really pleased with their quality and customer service. So I'm going to be a customer for life, I'm sure. But I've kind of dabbled in, I use Sticker app for my stickers. I've jumped over to Sticker Mule to try making magnets. I'm totally not married to either of those companies, but so far they haven't steered me wrong yet. Also, Sticker Mule is nice because whenever you get an order, they throw in their mule sauce. They have like this hot sauce, and I think it's so bizarre that they are a sticker and magnet making company, but then they also have this hot sauce, and it's really good. It makes me want to buy more product from them because, gosh, that hot sauce, it's so tasty.
They're putting something
Well,
in.
that's their business. Their business model was them as a hot sauce company. Like, how do we get people to buy our hot sauce? Let's make stickers for people, and then we'll send them the hot sauce.
It's completely ludicrous, but man, does it work. But as far as some of the other products that I offer, like apparel, and I've kind of jumped over, like I've just recently released like mugs and blankets and like tote bags and all this crazy stuff. That is definitely the throw it at the wall and see whatever sticks. I tried a couple different third-party printing companies and settled on Printful because they have a great way of integrating with my website, which is through Wix. They integrate with Etsy, so I can just add those listings to my existing shops. I don't have to create like a separate store on like a Redbubble page or whatever. Like it's all exists within my shop. They have opportunities for me to brand my, like if I were to have a hoodie printed, there's an option where I can add like my logo like printed where the tag would normally go. And that was really important for me. And I was really pleased with the quality of it. So that's been really great to really expand my my inventory because I don't have to invest any initial costs in the product. I pay for the materials of the product when an order is placed, so it's pure profit pretty much. But trying to find an appropriate way to price something where I don't really have to put much work into was also kind of a difficult dance because I felt like I don't know, it's like the cost of the materials for clothing and apparel is far more expensive than a print, so I felt guilty to increase my prices to a profitable wage. Because normally when it comes to pricing my products, I look at okay, what's the cost of the material, and then I usually like factor in, like I'll multiply that by like 4 or 5 depending on the product, and that's kind of my formula. And having that high of a profit margin allows me to cover my packaging, other overhead like my Adobe Photoshop subscription, my QuickBooks subscription. I've got so many, like my printer ink for other things. There's so many other costs that go in. So it's important to make sure that it's not just covering the cost of the actual material. But with my stuff on Printful, it was to use that same formula to increase the bare cost like 4 or 5 times would have made like a hoodie like $200 or something absurd. And so I pulled that number out of my ass. I don't know if that's accurate. But it would have been absolutely absurd. So I try to find a balance of at least like 50%, or like I'll at least double the cost that they have, because they have some kind of hidden fees where the shipping and the taxes come out of your profit, and they're not super transparent about that. I had to learn that the hard way. But yeah, I think the wide variety has been a really good step for me, I think, as far as making money from the art that I have already made instead of focusing on commission work.
So for throwing stuff at the wall and see what sticks, that sounds like a good avenue for like a Kickstarter or something. So where
Absolutely.
have you put any effort into Kickstarters before?
No, but I actually, there's one of your podcast episodes that was all about Kickstarter, and I have that bookmarked. I haven't listened to it yet, but I'm delighted that you already have touched on the topic of Kickstarters, because I am a total Kickstarter noob, but I have just started a tarot project, and it's a massive, massive project to do 78 cards. So I think once I'm a little bit farther along, maybe once I've finished all the major arcana cards or something, I might look into starting a Kickstarter for that. I think it's a great opportunity to, one, gain funding to buy the initial like bulk of the decks, and also just to increase awareness.
There's actually
Yeah,
two
at this point, it's
episodes.
not really.
Sorry,
Sorry,
two
which-
episodes.
So I know we had the one with Blake and Gavin. What was the other one that you're referring to? Jebby?
Me? Oh, well, there's the
Yeah.
one with Blake and Gavin, and then the one with Ethan.
That's right, because Ethan did complete his. This was like a post-mortem of his most recent Kickstarter.
Yeah, the one with Ethan
okay.
is good because we go from like pre-launch, beginning of launch, middle of campaign, end of campaign, and then all the post-campaign stuff. And so it's like it's a really great breakdown.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So Printful is one of these like print on demand kind of services.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Where you just sort of
Yeah.
like put the image on and they make it look like it's actually like on the different items that people can.
Yeah.
get.
They create the mock-ups for you, and then when someone checks out from my website, if they buy a sticker and a print and a hoodie or something like that, I'll get the order in. I'll see, okay, I've got a sticker and a print and a hoodie. Well, I don't have to do anything about that hoodie. That's going to be immediately drop shipped to them. So if it's just a hoodie, like I don't have to do anything. But I'll still have to ship the sticker and the print separately. So it comes in two separate packages. But the customer only pays shipping once. So sometimes I eat some extra costs there. But
Have you applied to Amazon merch?
I have not. I'm still in the earlier. So like I just started pursuing this full-time thing like 9 months ago. So I am farther along than I would have expected to be at this point. But just managing my Wix, my Etsy, and my Twitch. I've only just started to figure out how taxes work for different platforms. So I think before I start delving into new things like Amazon merch and stuff like that, I would want to get a better grasp on all of that.
When you were talking about your Printful shop, and you mentioned something about being 100% profit. What did you mean by that?
When I say 100% profit, I just mean like I don't have to. It's a guaranteed profit, I guess, is what I meant by that. Not 100%. It's a guaranteed profit. Thank you for clarifying. Because like there is the cost of goods, and I do pay for the goods. I pay for the shipping. There is all of that. But if you have the price set at an appropriate profit, you don't have to worry about investing in inventory in order to make money. It's you only pay the cost of the material once you are guaranteed that an order has been placed, and then they produce the material once the order's been placed. So it's all print on demand.
What kind of cut do they give you at Printful?
You get to choose. So you choose the price that you want. So they tell you this is the cost of the materials. They don't really tell you how much shipping and taxes are going to be. So you should definitely round up for that. I feel like the taxes and shipping for like a hoodie usually end up being at least $7 or around there. And so if you look at what you think is going to be your profit, you need to know that's like roughly $7 or something is going to be subtracted from that. So you need to round up. But yeah, you get to choose the price and how much profit you want to make.
I believe the Streamlabs store is similar. So
Yes.
anyone with a Streamlabs account can make their own store and then integrate that into their Twitch account.
Yeah, actually, it's funny that you mentioned that. That was actually the very first avenue that I dabbled in. I have some other streamer friends who have decided to use that, and they're not artists, but they do have their own merch, and so that was the easiest, most sensible way for them to do that. But since I'm having my artwork printed on hoodies, I care a lot about how the colors turn out and the quality of the printing. Whereas if it's just a little logo, it doesn't matter as much. So I did a test print through Streamlabs, and I was not pleased. So I've tried a couple other different companies, and Printful was the one that I ended up going with for their versatility and the quality of the product.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, like why you didn't stick with that service. And I've heard it mentioned before, and I've kind of been curious about it myself. So that's really good to hear that review that it's probably, as you say, you know, like their main focus, as in everything that they do, is probably going to be more for, you know, gamers and, you know, like a different kind of audience than people that are going to like want
absolutely
more subtlety and
right. I think if you're looking for like a name plastered on a shirt, or like something that like a logo or something like that, I think it would be a great option for people that are looking for that. But if you want to be a little more nuanced, I would not recommend it.
Not so much with beautiful watercolors and things like that.
Yeah.
So when it comes to inventory that you do keep in stock for yourself, is that just prints and stickers then?
Print, stickers, magnets, I would say. Yeah. I just added postcards, but that's pretty similar to print. So
you mentioned being pretty early on in this stage of kind of like feeling out what you do and don't like. Has it been long enough to determine like something that just didn't work for you and you're like, oh, I'm not going to do that anymore?
I am just at the point where I'm starting to realize. So I've offered 3 different print sizes for my work: a 5x7, an 8x10, and an 11x14. And then I have like some other square compositions where I've done like 5x5, 8x8, 10x10, and 12x12. But I wanted my art to be seen as like the bigger prints, but just the costs. Like, you're going to make more sales from the smaller prints. And I used to kind of, I was a little butthurt about it at first. I'm like, why don't they want a big piece? But maybe they can't afford it. Or maybe they only have the wall space. You have no idea. But I'm finally at the point where I'm realizing that investing in the 11x14 prints just isn't quite feasible. And it's not that I'm not going to offer them anymore, but the amount of inventory I'm willing to invest in those sizes, I'm only going to buy like 1 or 2 prints just so that I have something if the order is placed. But any like buying 3 of them, I would say is way overkill, because they rarely sell. And the cost is so much more expensive compared to any other print. Like, I'm spending like base, I actually can't even come up with a number off the top of my head, but it is astronomically more than the other prints. And I get a smaller percentage profit from those just because I wanted it to be priced affordably.
I imagine the cost of the framing has something to do with the larger prints being less popular.
See that? I don't know. I feel like if you just go to Michael's and you buy a frame, like, I am very, very well versed in the frame department at Michael's, let me tell you. If you're looking at custom framing, it can get really crazy expensive, but I've been really cautious to make sure that all of my prints are standard sizes. And I think that is something a lot of artists don't really put a lot of forethought into. They think of what's the best for the composition. But it can add some obscene costs to your customers if you decide to do kind of a funky, interesting, artistic-sized print. Because a custom frame, like at the size of like 11x14, or if you decided to do 11x15 instead because it better suited the composition, that's going to cost your customer to custom frame it like at least $200. And that's not something that a lot of people think about. But you could buy an 11x14 frame like on sale for maybe $20 if it's like a standard size.
Yeah, and it's pretty extensive, like the amount of like standard sizes that you have. So you can have the best of both worlds, you know, like you don't have to be finicky about your composition, you know, like, oh well, has to be this way and screw the framing. It's like, chances are there's a standard frame that's going to be close enough to the type of composition that you want to do to like not have to worry about it too much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that standardization thing is really important. And I feel personally attacked when you talk about artists not thinking about it, because I not for a huge amount of time, but I was not putting any thought into that.
Well,
I was like, oh, this is 13 by 14. Yeah, that makes sense. Sure. This is 12 and a half by 16 and 3/4. I was just like, I don't even know like where I was getting like, oh, I would start working on a piece and then just like randomly like increase the canvas size. Oh, I want to extend a little bit more over here. I want to extend a little bit. And I would end up with these funky, jacked up sizes.
Well, it's not intuitive if you're not coming from a framing background. And before I started my custom framing job, I didn't put a lot of thought into the sizing. I would pick a scrap piece of paper that was cut off the end of another piece and turn that into a piece of art, and that certainly wasn't standard. But one of the awesome solutions to having funky sized art is if you go with a custom mat that fits a standard frame, you can save a lot of money that way. Or you can choose to offer your artwork matted, at least, so you can at least take the custom part out of the equation for your customer by offering the piece matted to a standard size.
Yeah, even for digital artists, I think that there's some worthwhile information here, because people want desktops, like wallpapers, their phone backgrounds, things like that. So it's worth considering, even if you're, in that space as well, or like
100%,
like a website banner, things like that.
Totally. I think being mindful of where the art is going to be displayed and the size and shape of that, and the resolution or whatever, it's all really important to consider. Maybe not in the earliest stages, but at least like you might end up cropping it to fit, because you would hate for it to naturally, like some system to crop it in a weird way or stretch it or do something totally butcher your artwork just because it needs to fit a certain resolution.
So I was thinking, you have the prints that are of various sizes, and you have stickers. You have what else? What else in summary are we up to?
I'd say prints and stickers are probably the bread and butter, but I also have added like postcards and magnets, and then all of the stuff that's print on demand through Printful, which I've totally lost track. I've just gone off the deep end with adding fun things, and people keep requesting more, and I don't know what's going to stay, but it certainly doesn't cost me anything to throw it up there and see if it does anything. Whereas if I had to invest in the inventory myself, I'm a little bit more methodical about what designs I put out or how much inventory I invest in.
All right. So the question I was going to ask was, what were like the biggest percentages of that? And you said the prints and the stickers are the two biggest. So are those like 60% or?
I don't know that I have that information yet. I'm still sorting through QuickBooks. I'm a little behind on my taxes, so I filed for an extension because I had a whole snafu with QuickBooks. I sorted all of my transactions, and then my free trial expired, and turns out you can't transfer the data to a lower tier. So I had to do that all over again, sort every single transaction from my bank account from the beginning of 2020 until now.
That's super rude.
Yeah, I did that all yesterday, and my brain's still fried.
Happy Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah, woo!
So are you tracking... I assume that you are tracking your sales to some degree, though, because you're doing
absolutely.
your taxes,
Absolutely.
so you gotta know what you're selling. Yeah. We always tell people to be as specific or as general as they want. What are your numbers looking like from? I'm most interested in your web store, your Printful, because places like that feels tricky. You have the integration with your website. That seems really important because then you don't have to send people to yet another place.
Yes.
So that's a great key ingredient.
Mm-hmm.
But then getting people to buy like coffee mugs and shit like always seems just like so well, I don't want to make any hard and fast statements about what it is or isn't, because some people obviously like do very well with, you know, merchandise like that. How much less than your prints and your stickers is it? Or do you see a consistent stream of it?
It's funny that you say that, because when I first started, I was so reluctant to jump on the Printful train and create apparel and make mugs. I felt like it was all pretty kitschy, and I worried that it devalued my work. But honestly, if you think about it, there's only so much space on people's walls, and there are some designs that people love, but they don't necessarily want it framed on the wall. They'd rather wear it as a hoodie or look at it every morning when they drink their coffee. And it brings us, you can introduce your art in so many other areas of people's lives. Whereas if they've got like one section of their house that they're like, okay, I'm going to display art here, and they buy the print and then boom, it's there. But you can introduce your art in so many other ways. But I would say that it's hard to look at the numbers, because the profit from the mugs and the shirts and everything, it's skewed. I just see the total revenue coming in, and I have those numbers to go off of, but my percentage of profit from those items is much smaller than the other items, even though those are higher ticket items. But I would say the hoodies are probably one of the bigger things in my shop. Actually, I did some prep. I took notes for this. I knew you were going to ask me this stuff, and I actually ran all the numbers, and I forgot I did.
Fantastic.
Yeah, top selling items. Let's go. And I even have a percentage of total. Wow, look at that. So prepared. So I've got a print pack. I've noticed that print packs are very popular. Packaging things together so that people think they're getting a better deal. Amazing. That I would say I've got 2 different print packs on my website. I've got one like a triptych of some berries, different like blueberries, blackberries, and strawberries, which is some of my earlier works. And then I have another one of like these moon phases. And those 2, I would say, as far as prints are concerned, are some of my best sellers. And it's like I'm tricking people into buying 3 prints instead of 1, and it's like it's not really a trick, but you know, it's amazing that packaging it up so that people just buy more of it. They're more likely to buy more if you present it in that way.
With the convention circuit, my understanding is that it's very common for people to have like 1 for 60 or 2 for 40 or 3 for
yes,
50,
absolutely,
or whatever. So
absolutely,
that's the same thing. It just happens to be on your online site, and it still works. So that's good to know.
Yeah. No, but those would, as far as prints are concerned, those are the highest, I would say. I mean, the percentages, since I have so many different items, like that berry print pack makes up like 6% of my total, which is the highest, but also so does my growth design of my hoodie. That's pretty tied. I mean, there's a little bit more towards the prints, but yeah, those are pretty tied, I would say. And it's that one specific design of the hoodie is gosh, it is my best seller. And then I've got some other night sky prints, which this is kind of a funny tangent, but I painted that night sky painting in 2016 in one of my beginning watercolor courses. And it is still to this day my best seller, and I make the most money from that design. And it drives me insane that I've done all of this growth as an artist, and I've put so much more work out there, and that's one design is still month to month my bread and butter.
You and Blake have a lot in common. You can talk about that.
Yeah.
Well, even I can commiserate a little bit, because I don't make as much from like print sales and stuff like that. But there's one piece that's from it's much older, but it's definitely one of my most popular. And I can't replicate like whatever magic was happening at that moment. I can't replicate it. Like I can't go back and like redo that piece for like whatever reason. Like my style has moved on, my proclivities, preferences, the types of marks, my process. So much has changed, and it makes me sad. Like you said, on the one hand, it's like, it's kind of irritating because it's like, well, damn it, like there's all this other cool stuff too. And
Right.
yeah, sure,
and
people
you've
like
evolved
that.
as an artist, and
Right.
people still choose the first time the magic struck.
Right. And there's also some sadness to that because it's like, oh, well, I mean, I guess I wish I could keep doing that.
Yeah, I'm torn because it's like I've definitely decided to kind of go back and try to recreate it. And it's been successful, but I don't think I've been as successful as my first attempt. And I think that's one of the things about watercolor is there were some wonderful watercolor blooms that just the paint decided to be on my side that time. And watercolor is very finicky, and you do really have to trust the medium and let it kind of do half the work. And sometimes you don't like the work it did. But yeah, that design, I've been able to put it on a hoodie. I've created that print as like a holographic print and a G-clay print. And all of those individual items are within like my top 6 selling items. So if you take that one design, astronomically more than anything else I've sold.
So Leah in the chat wants to know, like, how do you feel about selling your originals? We haven't touched on that so much.
Ooh.
We've been talking about like prints and stuff like that, but
Sure.
what about like, the actual originals? I know some people that don't like to actually sell their originals and they just keep hoarding them around. But is that an issue for you?
There are certain pieces I might develop an attachment to, but I've learned that the more work I make, the less attached I become to each piece. I like to kind of describe it like a Horcrux, like you put a little piece of your soul in each piece, but the more pieces you create and the more pieces of your soul that go out there. I mean, if you've only made 5 pieces, that's like a fifth of you. Whereas if you've made 500, you're like, what's one that you've sold? It doesn't make a dent. So I would say if you want to start selling your work, but you're struggling to, or like you want to start selling your original pieces and you're struggling with that, just make more. I think the solution to anything is always make more art. At least that's what I kind of live by. But yeah, I do sell my originals. They're on my website. I don't sell them as frequently as I would like, but that's because I think they're priced fairly. And it's hard to find the right buyer for an original piece, and it's important to not change the price consistently, hoping that lowering it is going to make it sell more, because the person that likes that art will want it for what it's truly valued at. It's just hard to find the right person.
Yeah, the originals are the one thing that I mean, in general, don't lower your prices, but
yeah,
for originals, absolutely don't do that.
And I know this from experience because I've constantly gone in and changed my prices back and forth and back and forth. I've always questioned it, but yeah, it is so important. And the very first original I ever sold, I learned this lesson the hard way. The School of Hard Knocks taught me. I was still in art school. I painted this canvas of it was like a still life of my studio space. And I intended it to be kind of a memorial piece of my time in the studio at Central Washington University. And one of my peers, he was an older gentleman who was auditing the class, but he was part of my class, and he really enjoyed the piece, and he wanted it for the same reason that I had created it. And I was willing to let it go to someone who knew maybe not the value of it, but had the same memories attached. And I told them that I wanted to sell it for $500, which I thought was fair. It was about an 18 by 24 oil painting, and it was really highly detailed. And it was the first piece I ever sold, but I mean, I felt pretty confident in that price. And he immediately was like, "Oh, well, that's way too much. I could go for 300." And he just cut it almost in half. And I stood my ground and I said no. And then my professor stepped in and told me that I'm a beginner and I should reevaluate it. I think she wanted me to make the sale. But it is the one and only time she ever steered me wrong. But I agreed and I sold it for $300. And I was on cloud 9 for like 2 days. Because I sold my first piece and it was for hundreds of dollars. And as a beginning artist, that's absolutely thrilling. But then literally like the next month or two later, I had a piece that was physically slightly smaller. I think it was like a 20 by 20 inch oil painting. And it was accepted into a juried show, and it was hosted by the provost of the school. And she took a liking to my piece, and I had priced it at $600 because I did not want to sell it. I was very attached to it, and I jacked up the price because I didn't want to sell it. But I thought, I think 600, I would be okay parting with it. And she said that having it hang in her office, she just fell in love with it, and she had to buy it from me. And so 2 months later, I sold a smaller piece for 600, and it really showed that, for the person who really does like the original and values it, they're willing to pay. And so you should not ever let anyone talk you down. It is one of the biggest regrets of my artistic career is allowing that man to lowball me and only pay 300 for a piece that was worth more.
Yeah, the appropriate response to somebody trying to cut your price in half is to immediately double it.
I love that.
Now it's 1,000. All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was selling it to someone who didn't value it.
So how do you get people to go look at it, to go see your shop? That's one thing that a lot of people find tricky is getting people to go there and then stay long enough to buy something. Do you have any sort of magic pixie dust for us?
Well, actually, one of the things I haven't touched on yet, but one of the big deciding factors in me creating an e-commerce shop on my website as opposed to my Etsy is Facebook and Instagram added a feature where you can have a shop on Instagram, and it connects to your existing shop on your own domain. So you can't link to an Etsy, but you can link to your own shop on your own website.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. I thought the Instagram thing was like Instagram proprietary or whatever.
Well, so you can choose two different options. You can choose to allow people to check out through Instagram and they never leave the app, or you can create the listing and not make that an option. So if they press the purchase button, it immediately just takes you straight to the listing on your website and they check out on your website.
Does it go through the whole process of shopping cart checkout, or do they then have to add it to the shopping cart and then go to the checkout?
They so on Instagram, if you're looking, you can tag your products in your posts. And so when people see that post, they go, oh, view products. And then they click and see, oh, this night sky print is really pretty. I want to look into it. And they click that link and it immediately takes them to the listing. So they don't spend very much time on the Instagram app before they're taken to the listing to do the shopping on my site.
Oh, okay. So I guess I was having this delirious wishful thinking that Instagram would also initiate the sale. So then by the time they got to your website, all they would have to do would be like checking out. But that's actually probably not possible.
No, I don't think that's how that would work. And I don't think that would actually be beneficial for sales, because I think having them have one item direct them to your website, then they see all of the items that are available. Whereas I don't think that Instagram does as good a job at showing like the entirety of your inventory. Or directing people into the right direction of what would be a good recommended item, whereas like my website does a better job of that. And I'm able to do featured items and stuff like that.
And you're saying that you can actually tag the image itself, or like have a tag in the post?
Any like your Instagram reel or any of your posts, just like you can tag people, you can tag products. And it shows the price of the product and you can just tap on it and it pops up right there.
Wow, Instagram is like letting people leave the platform? This is shocking to me.
Yes, yeah, no, and it directs people straight onto my website. So that was the biggest thing that I was like, okay, I need to create my own website. Etsy's not cutting it anymore. Etsy's great for discoverability, but they do have all of these pesky fees, which you can kind of avoid with your own website, and you can create more of you can brand yourself. We have more freedom for branding on your own website, whereas Etsy doesn't give you that much freedom.
Is this shop feature just for people with business accounts on Instagram, or?
Probably.
And do you have to have a certain follower count, or?
No, I don't remember there being any kind of cap to switch to a business account. I think you can start with a business account or switch back and forth, whatever suits you.
I meant to have like the taggable posts and stuff like that, but
no, I think there is a certain point where you need a certain number of followers in order to be able to add links to your stories. But I think so far that's the only thing that I'm aware of that I personally am not able to do.
Yep, I think that's like the 10,000
I think you need a
follower
really,
limit where you
really
need the
huge.
where you get the
Yeah,
swipe
you can
up,
swipe up. Yeah, yeah.
which is
Leah brings
confusing
up
to
a good
me.
question.
Go
Does
ahead.
the price change on Instagram when it does change on your website?
No, it does not. So you would need to manually change that. But I don't. I figured that it's important to have the pricing accurate where people actually check out. I don't think that it matters so much to have it on the Instagram on Instagram because they see the picture and I don't think that they look too much on the price. I could be wrong, but I've also uh, only added the smallest size of all of my prints to my shop on Instagram because I don't think people need to see the range that it goes all the way up, like from $12 to $55 for the print range, because they're going to choose the size and price that suits their budget and their needs. So that I don't think is as important if they're interested in the artwork themselves. Like that'll take them to the listing.
Do you have a sense of what call to action, I guess is the word, gets people to your web store more than others, or like the most? Like, is it Instagram or is it Twitch, or like what prompt that you use gets the most conversion?
Yes. So actually, within the last 4 months, I've finally figured out, I don't want to call it the secret, but I've seen a lot of other artists do like organized shop updates. And in the past, I'd always, whenever I had a new product, I would add the single listing and then announce it, or I'd add like two listings and announce that. But now I decided to just give it a try. Again, that's throwing stuff at the wall, whatever sticks. Is great. And I decided to just try to do them monthly and try to just pack as much as I possibly could into a single update. And having the variety of new items is really what drives traffic. I notice a huge influx of sales within like the first week of a shop update, and then it dwindles down. And then as soon as I release more things, that's like more than there's a substantial thing, like they can fill their cart just with the new products. That's the big conversion is having like a big event or a big update or a lot of new things.
So is it always new content, or do you ever bring back old content where you're like, oh, it's been 3 months since this was part of a shop update, I can sort of like bring it back as like part of like a new thing, a new set of products?
I always, I guess as far as content creation is concerned, I try to bring my older products and display them in my content so people know that they still exist and they can still purchase them. But yeah, there are some items where I'll decide like, oh, you know what, actually maybe I'm going to turn this piece into a sticker and now all of a sudden this is a new product even though I only had prints before. But I think having new stuff is really, I think that's the secret, which sucks because you want to be pushing the stuff that's already there. But I think it's important to realize that a lot of your sales come from a small group of very loyal followers and customers. And when you add new things, it's new things for those people to purchase. And you want to keep those people interested and those people that's really the only people you should be creating your content for, and you want to please those people.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't want to lose them.
Yeah, that's something that you hear crop up a lot. You don't have to sell to the world. You just have to keep selling to the people that really, really like your stuff and who like you. And who you like. Everybody likes everybody. That's the key. So you have to come up with like a new set of content every month. That also keeps you on your toes.
Yeah. Yes, and I've only done 3 organized shop updates so far, but just with that information, it is so clear that makes a world of difference. I finally feel like I'm actually like on my feet now with my art career now that I've started organizing them.
there's also a lot of fun things that you do for people that are buying your stuff. And it's infectious. I can fully admit to having succumbed to that, where I was like, shit, I want to buy something from her just because of all of this like cool stuff that I'm going to get besides the actual thing that I'm buying. I won't list them all at the moment. It will be worthwhile to in a second, but first, I'm wondering if you have a sense of how the numbers shake out in terms of how much you invest in the sort of like little like freebie items that you'll include with an order, as well as like the time that it takes to make the packaging, the extra packaging time, versus the return on the investment of that time and extra money.
I am far less interested in the money side of things and far more interested in creating an experience for my customers. And I think that's, I mean, you can create art, and having your art in someone's home is delightful and a wonderful way to kind of interact with your audience and your customers. But I think thinking about like what your goal is with selling your work, are you just trying to make a profit? Then you should probably go with the most affordable packaging you have there, bare bones. If that's your priority. But for me, I was kind of reevaluating it, and I think it's important that people have a sense of my brand when they open my packages. I want my packages to delight them. I want there to be some sort of surprise. I think knowing that there is that kind of extra incentive, or you're going to get some kind of freebie sticker or a free print with your order. It's just an opportunity for me to just share my work and delight the people that have delighted me by spending their money on my art. So I definitely ensure that I am profiting, but with this recent promotion that I've been doing, I've been for any order over $10, I include a free print, and those free prints are valued at $12. So it was not something that I necessarily did because I thought it was profitable, but I thought it was an excellent way for me to take prints that don't sell and repackage that in a way that delights my customers, and I can use that as a way to thank them for buying my new stuff.
That's pretty brilliant.
How do you go about picking the subject matter for your paintings then? Are you thinking about what do people want, or are you just strictly thinking this is what I want to make?
I initially was worried about what other people wanted, and I realized that what other people want is for me to fully express myself and make what I want. That's what interests them the most. So it's kind of backwards a little bit, but the answer is both. But honestly, I've focused a lot less on what other people desire and just focusing on exploring anything and everything. And it seems like the people that are loyal, they stay loyal. So I don't seem to really have an issue with, or at least I'm not noticing. I think the more exploration I'm doing, the more excited and delighted people are, and the more interest I'm getting, rather than trying to cater to what I thought people wanted. The interesting thing about catering to, like, for the masses or trying to create art that everyone loves, is you end up making an entirely neutral piece that it doesn't delight anyone and it doesn't offend anyone. And gosh, what is the point of art if it's neutral and doesn't do any of the wonderful things that art is known to do? So I think it's good if you don't please everyone, because then you're delighting the people that matter more.
In Mark Rosewater GDC talk, he mentioned this is very similar with Magic the Gathering cards, where the cards that are the most effective or potent in a set are those that either a lot of people love and a lot of people hate, more so than a lot of people think is okay. Because if everybody thinks it's okay, then it's just water under the bridge, nobody cares. But if it's something that they love or hate, and it's a dichotomy there, then it's going to stand out to the people that love it, and it'll be theirs.
Yeah, I think if you're worried that someone's going to hate your work, that you shouldn't be worried, because there's an equal and opposite force of people that love it. But I think same with magic cards and something that's effective. If someone hates it, someone else is going to love it purely because someone else hates it and they want to use it against them.
That was sorry, but that was especially true. There was
Yes.
a set that came out very recently where they had alternate art, and one artist in particular was I want to say really taken to the rack, the torture chamber, right? Because it was just Joby knows what I'm talking about because he hates the card. That's fine. But as a result of that blowback, tons of artists went on Twitter just to support them. And it ended up being that card art for that sold like for tens of thousands of dollars more than it would have otherwise.
Wow, that's incredible.
and in light of what you just said about, that love-hate relationship, I'm tempted to think that they did that on purpose. Like maybe they just saw that coming. They're like, oh, this is going to get roasted so hard and it's going to be fucking fantastic. Maybe that's just the cynical side of me, but it's tempting.
Who knows? You would like to think that people can plan for that, but sometimes it just turns into a whirlwind and you go along for the ride. Who knows? If it was intentional, brilliant on them. But regardless, the fact that they played it out the way it did.
Well, for you, it's very, very apparent like how much care and consideration you put into customer satisfaction. Watching one of your TikTok videos that you've made, we're just kind of like going through the packaging process to show people. It's super fun to watch. I had to write down, I had to like make a list to make sure that I would remember, and to like share with everybody else just to illustrate like, what you're putting into this. This is just for like one package. There was a thank you card. There was the free print. There was a sticker, a 20% off coupon, a little QR code, which I wanted to ask you about, like what that was for, a little handwritten note, an embossed stamp on the envelope, and little foil envelope stickers. I was like, my head exploded. I was like, oh my God, how much time are you putting into these, making these little packages?
I think it looks like I put a lot more time. I think when I started out, it took a lot more time, but now I've got this pegboard on the wall, and I've got these adorable little containers with all my business cards and the little washi tape that I use to seal the envelopes and the stickers. And I think just creating a space that kind of streamlined that process was really important for me. Otherwise, I would be spending too much time. But okay, I lost my train of thought here. What was the question?
I was curious about the time that it took you
Okay, so I guess I kind of answered that.
Yeah, no, you've got it streamlined. Basically, is like
pretty much. I've got it streamlined. Yes. I'll sometimes I emboss all of my envelopes with my logo, and I actually was working at my custom frame job at Michael's, and a customer had brought in one of her prints to have framed, and she had her art embossed with her logo, and it floored me. I was so wowed by it. It looked so professional, and I had to ask her about it. And apparently you can like buy a personalized embosser off like thestampmaker.com for like $50, and that's like a pretty minimal investment for something that you can use over and over and over again and in so many different ways. So I emboss my prints with my logo as like an extra measure of authenticity, and then I also am able to use that on the envelopes just as a branding opportunity without having to pay for like any kind of bells and whistles for my envelopes. I just get plain black envelopes and then add my logo to them.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you may not think about until you see it. Like you said, you saw somebody at your old job doing it, and it's a little thing like that steps it up so much. I mean, it goes from a boring envelope that you're putting your art into right up to like, I got this from Christie's. I won this at an auction, in this high-end gallery or whatever. You're like, this is super fucking professional.
It adds the sense of like that your brand, like that you are somebody, whether you are or aren't. If you act like you are and you create a brand and a presence as if you are somebody, people will perceive you as such. And I still feel like it's almost like that fake it till you make it kind of thing. But I still feel like I've got a lot of presentation that I am somebody when I still feel like I'm trying to fill up the shoes that I've created for myself here. But yeah, I think it certainly adds to just the whole sense of business presence online.
Well, I love what you said too about like how you don't really track the numbers or the time spent on those little peripherals. It ruined a bunch of other questions that I did have, but
I'm
that's
so
okay.
sorry, but it's yeah, I think it's far more important for me to just be in the present and find it as a wonderful opportunity to interact with my customers. That's the most fulfilling part of the work for me, and I wanted to really milk it for all I could because packaging the order, like whenever I got an order on Etsy, like when I first started out, like I was getting maybe like 1 or 2 orders every 1 or 2 months, and like that's nothing. Especially if it's only like a $12 print, it's like that's to make like $12 like a month, and that's not the profit. That's like absurd. But I would still, as soon as I got the notification I got an order, I'd rush to my computer and I was so excited about it. And now that I am getting more orders, that excitement it's still there. I'm still just as excited to package every order. I just get to streamline it a little bit and maybe package 3 at once instead, which is such an amazing privilege.
And you also mentioned too that you are at least trying to be sure that you are profitable to some degree. It's not like you're just
Absolutely
frittering away the money. It's just like you're not trying to nickel and dime it, which is that's what I love.
right. Yeah.
So one of my last questions on that before we move on to a new subject would be, you mentioned you quit your job and now you're about like 9 months into like really making the full go of it. Do you have an idea now that you're doing your taxes for it? Do you have an idea of, what your books are looking like? Are you in the green, or is there still some improvements? There's always improvements to be made, but I mean, like, is there anything that's like really sticking for you where you're like, oh God, I got to get this wired out or ironed out? Or do you feel like, okay, I'm on the right track?
Well, I'm very excited to say that I am in the green. It was really rough getting started, and I'm really blessed to have such a supportive partner with a very stable job who is willing to put in some extra work while I was still kind of getting started. Really, really grateful for him. He's actually the whole reason, like I painted that watercolor piece for him at the very beginning as a Christmas gift for him. And he's the one that posted it on the social media to get me all just to give me that validation and encouragement. And he's the one that really pushed me to say, hey, I think you should do art. Like I support you in that. So I'm really grateful to have him. But yeah, and then there we go. I went in just this whole gratitude tangent for my partner here and then lost it. But sorry, what was the question?
No, that's fine. You actually did answer the question. It was relatively
okay, good,
the question was probably longer winded than it needed to be. The lingering curiosity though is, do you have ideas for boosting revenue in the future?
Right.
Like, do you have like currently things that you think, oh well, maybe I'll try this in the future?
I would definitely say the shop updates. Like I'm stressing that over and over again, but I can't, like speaking on a percentage point, like I would say that my income and revenue from my shop like more than quadrupled once I started doing organized shop updates. And it blew my mind. So giving some people more of a destination, like there's actually products to look at rather than just like one thing. Because if they see that one thing, they're like, oh, well, I either want that one thing or I don't. But if they know that there's a variety of products, they're at least going to go to the shop and look. But that being said, I think just focusing more on the smaller items like stickers, people love that. And I have some customers that buy a sticker pack, not just one, but like 3. I get like a quantity 3 for the same exact pack. And it's because with a print, people buy one and it's on the wall. But with stickers, they're so versatile. And maybe people use them for journaling or slap them on their water bottle or give them as gifts or add them as like a fun little maybe they have a pen pal and they want to throw in some stickers or share. Or maybe it's a stocking stuffer. There's just like the options are endless for little things like that. And if a pack is like only like $10 or something, people don't really think twice about it, because it's more of an impulse buy. And I think that's definitely where most of my sales come from, are the smaller ticket items.
So I am curious with stickers because I come from a tech background, and people cover their laptops with hex stickers. There are specific dimensions of hexagons that have icons or other things in the middle. But I don't see a lot of artists catering to that audience.
I think it's because artists are entirely out of touch on that demand. I had no idea it was there. And my partner actually is in the tech industry, and he does cover his computer in stickers, but they're not in the hex shape. He just goes for whatever fits. It's like a mysterious Tetris of wacky stickers.
I wonder if it's just the programming side thing, because
maybe
with our programming, especially, that's my field, and every I don't know, not every package, but every company that's related to our programming, they'll have like their own studio insignia, and they'll put them on hex stickers, and they'll give them out at conferences, and then you just plug them into the pattern that you already have formed. So
interesting. That's brilliant. Brilliant.
But I can imagine that an artist would, if they could make up their own series of hex stickers, then they could sell a package of different hex stickers, and then people would just do adding it on.
That's an interesting concept for sure.
I don't want to pop that bubble because I'm fully in favor of this idea, but I also wonder if there's like a different aesthetic there, like the sort of like the tech heads that want the like geometric designs to their stickers are probably thinking also along the same like engineering lines with what the actual graphic is going to look like. And
it is graphic design in there rather than paintings, but I'm sure that you could come up with some watercolor splotch that then has an insignia in the middle of it, and that'd be cool.
Yeah. Hybridization is what we call that in the industry, Moose. So our next big subject that we wanted to talk to you about, we've already touched on a little bit, in the ways that you kind of utilize social media for a lot of this. And you use a lot. It's impressive, like sort of like how many things you're doing on social media. How do you find the time to make art? Like, I actually, a less snarky version of that question would be like, how do you balance the two? Do you have a schedule where like, okay, this is going to be my art making time, and then I have this time set aside and allotted for social media stuff?
Yeah, so I think going back to the whole reason I started streaming on Twitch was so I could kind of set that schedule. So I have a dedicated time. I've made a commitment to my viewers. I will be live making art every Sunday, Monday, and Wednesday at 2 p.m. till like 5 or 6 p.m. Pacific time. And that's when I'm making my art. And I thought when I first started that I would also make personal projects and other things in my free time. And that is not true. Almost 100% of my time in the studio creating art is live on Twitch. And I did not anticipate that, but it really goes to show that having that commitment is everything, because without that commitment, I don't make it. I don't make art, and I spend that time elsewhere. So it's really important that I have that set schedule and I have that time carved out for creating. It also kind of adds this momentum going forward. Like if I finish a piece, I think normally if I wasn't a Twitch streamer, I would kind of bask in pat myself on the back. Good, you finished a piece. Maybe I'll start brainstorming the next one next week or something. But if I finish a piece on Sunday, stream the next day, and I have to have something to do. So I'm immediately pushing myself onto the next idea. I always have like some random thumbnails or different ideas. I keep a to-do list of like a bunch. It's not really a to-do list, but just a list of ideas that I could pull from at any moment. And yeah, it's definitely a lot of momentum. But as far as the social media creation, I'm still trying to find a healthy balance of it, because it's tricky to know, especially with TikTok specifically. It sucks you in as a consumer far more than it encourages you to be a creator. Just the natural like the way the app's created, and they do. A lot of people say that they'll give every creator their like moment of fame. They'll make you go viral just to get you hooked on creating. And I don't know how true that is, because I haven't seen every single creator have a viral video, but it does seem that that I think there is some truth in that for certain people who have had viral videos, because it certainly worked for me. I struck gold on one video, and I was like, oh, cool, I got to keep up this momentum. Everybody says you're supposed to be posting multiple times a day. So for a whole month, I kept it up, and I posted daily while I had all that kind of energy and momentum of people coming to my page. And I kid you not, within like the span of, I want to say like 2 months, I went from like 200 followers to like, I want to say 7 or 8,000, just from that kind of burst. But that was not sustainable. And I don't think it was good for my mental health. I suffered so much burnout afterwards. And I realized that it is just frankly not worth it. It's glamorous to gain all the followers, but then the algorithm changed, and all of a sudden my content wasn't interesting anymore. And I had the followers, but I didn't have the views. And I realized that, it's people want to gain the followers, and it's a noble goal, but why? I think it's important to ask yourself, why do you want the followers? Why do you need that kind of validation? Like, what is your goal with it? Do you want just more eyes on your work? Do you have to achieve that on this one particular app, or what are other avenues that you can get people to see it? Or like, what kind of validation do you need from your audience? Like, I don't think that a follower count is the best way to I don't think that's a good goal, to have a certain follower count, because it's entirely out of your control. And bigger number does not equal better person. I am the same person I was at 200 followers as I am at 9,000. I'm making the same content. Maybe I've made a little more, so I have a little more experience, but it has no reflection on the number of followers I have.
And the weird part is when somebody comes up to you and they see that your follower count is like 10 times as big as them, and they think that you're famous. And it's like,
it's bizarre. It's like, I'm a drop in the bucket of creators.
I barely cracked 1,000 followers on Twitter, and because of that one post that had a few million views to it, I've had people say, wow, it's like I'm talking to a celebrity. I'm like, me? Really?
Yeah, right? It's bizarre. And like, you go from like, you look at my TikTok and I've got over 9,000, but you look at my Twitter, I've got like 100 followers. I'm the same person. I'm posting the same content. It doesn't matter. As long as you have someone to listen and someone who cares, it's worth posting. And I think that it's important to manage your expectations and realize it's important to know why you're doing what you're doing and what the goal is. And if the goal is to just gain followers, come up with a new goal, because you can't control that. And I don't think that that's really what you want. I think that's what you think you want.
Well, the TikTok algorithm changing might change the context of a lot of questions that I had in mind regarding your presence there, which is fine. That might be a valuable conversation in itself. Because I was wondering, if you had received a tangible return on that time investment. Like, did you see an increase in sales or engagement elsewhere?
I did notice that there were I only did one TikTok live, and I haven't done another one, and it's not because I had a bad experience or anything. I just haven't found the time. But I did a TikTok live, and there was someone who chatted with me for a little bit, and I did that live like 30 minutes before I went live on Twitch, and they jumped from TikTok onto Twitch, and it was literally only one person, but they came back for more than one stream, and that was really exciting for me. I did notice an influx in sales. I did a shop update while I was kind of currently going viral. It's not like it was one of those videos where I had like my label printer shooting out like 100 labels or anything like that, but it was certainly more than I'd ever expected. I think in this like one weekend, I maybe had like 16 orders, which was just mind blowing for me. Because I'm used to receiving that many in maybe like a month or two. No, 2 months. Like that's how many I would receive in like 2 months. And I received that in one weekend with all of that hype. So that was really, really exciting. But it was kind of just this delightful thing that happened, but it's not something that I think you can chase. And I don't think it's something that you can plan for and organize and make happen. I think it's just this kind of serendipitous lottery thing. I think every single post you make on TikTok is kind of like you bought a lottery ticket and you don't know what's going to happen. And it's can be frustrating, but I think it's important to have a good state of mind and develop a healthy relationship with it. Realize that, you're a well-rounded person and that who you are on social media and all of that it's just a tiny part of who you really are. You've got meaningful relationships. You want to take care of your mental health. You want to make good art. You want to I don't know, there's so many other facets of your lives that it's important to keep balance. And I think it's better for your art, and just for you to focus on that, I think, first and foremost.
Yeah, for sure. Twitch seems like it's most conducive to that healthy relationship because it's an immediate response that you get. It's not the thing where you're like, oh, I have to keep putting out content and then hope it gets seen. It's just like, okay, I'm doing this now, and then it's either gonna get seen or it's not. And that's
Right.
okay. And it's something that you would kind of be doing anyway. You don't have to do it for the express purpose of it being seen, if that makes sense.
Precisely.
So yeah. And you've attributed a lot of credit to Twitch for kind of like getting you motivated, keeping you motivated, finding that community. And this is something that gets echoed a lot, and obviously we're all about it ourselves.
Yeah.
How did you find your way onto Twitch? Like, what was it that how did it crop up on your radar?
My boyfriend, he was like, hey, like he watches Twitch, mostly for the gaming content and stuff, but he's like, there's an art community there too, right? And I was kind of skeptical. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and I was like, I don't know. But he just I don't want to say he was like really persistent about it, but he definitely kept keeping the idea fresh in my mind. He wouldn't let it just sit on the back burner and go to waste. So he was really, really supportive and encouraging on that. Kind of helped me get my my initial setup all put together. He's really savvy with computers, and I have a lot of anxiety when it comes to tech problems. I have a very short leash for it. If something goes wrong, I immediately like freak out. So I'm really, really happy that he's able to help me with some of the tech problems. Whether or not he's actually knowledgeable on it, he has much more capacity for he's more patience for learning and solving the problem and sticking it through to the end than I do.
It's interesting that you were more concerned with the tech issues than the potential troll issues that are like most known for the gaming side of Twitch.
Right. Well, I think I started watching the art community and discovering new artists. And at first, like until you Twitch understands what your viewing habits are, I like only could find digital artists, which was great. And but I wanted traditional artists. I'm a traditional artist. I wanted to see how they stream. Like what does their setup look like? How do they manage? It was pretty obvious to me that you would do like a screen capture to share digital art, but like how on earth do you manage a computer and your paint palette on the same table and all of that kind of stuff? God forbid you spill your water on your keyboard, like, oh man, I wish I wasn't speaking from experience on that, but I wish I could say it didn't happen more than once, but we learn.
Logitech does have a waterproof, rinsable keyboard, by the way. If anybody's
Oh,
looking for that.
noted. Yeah. Traditional artists. But yeah, it was. I was able to kind of dip my toes into some other. I think Kirk Shannon was one of the first traditional artists that I discovered, and he's got an awesome community. He makes some really wonderful art. But then once I kind of cracked open the traditional artists category, I was able to discover so many amazing artists and kind of develop connections that way.
Quick shout out to Kirk Shannon. He and Pinky were the first 2 guests on the
Oh, really? That's amazing. Pink Epoxy is amazing too. But yeah, definitely shout outs to both of them.
Yeah, a lot of streams of yours that I've lurked on or watched VODs, it's just you kind of hanging out. Just
It is. It's kind of become that.
Which is great. I mean, that's like an I don't want to say underestimated, but undervalued aspect of it, where that there is like an actual like community that you're developing, and you get the sense that you're actually hanging out with friends, not just nameless viewers or whatever, and in that, in making friends and in making a community, there can tend to be this resistance. I've heard this from other streamers. There's sort of like this resistance and hesitancy when it comes to trying to market to those people. Mm-hmm. Do you ever struggle with that? Where there's like a sort of like there's in the Venn diagram of Twitch community and then online sales. There's a little bit of overlap there. Does that overlap ever get you?
A lot of overlap, actually. Mm-hmm. I would say yeah, I would say a majority of my sales actually come from my Twitch community, which is kind of crazy. But
so how do you balance that relationship?
Right. Well, I have to say one of my mods consistently prompts me to talk about my shop update or whatever when I normally wouldn't do it, or it seems really forced. She'll just kind of passive aggressively do the command in the chat, or ask me really conniving questions to try to get me to talk about it. And it really goes to show that a lot of my community members, they want me to be successful. And even if they're not purchasing the art, I don't think they feel like I'm upset by that. I always stress that, like, if I do try to direct people to my website or whatever, like, it's not that I'm looking for them to purchase my art. If they want to support me, that's a great way to do so. But art is meant to be seen. So if you just go there and you look at it, I will be ecstatic because I've put a lot of time and energy into it. And that's really, at the end of the day, what I want is people to see my art. So I think setting the expectation of no expectation, like just, hey, if you look at it, that would make my day, is I think a good step. But yeah, I've also kind of created in my Discord community, I have a sub only channel, so only my Twitch subscribers can chat in there. And that whenever I add an original piece to my shop, I give them at least 24 hours notice to kind of call dibs, because they seem to be the most interested in purchasing my original art, or at least the people that have like a reoccurring subscription. They want to, they're loyal followers and supporters. And it's a tiny way that I can kind of give back by allowing them priority, but I am also marketing myself and selling to them, and they're excited to see the stuff I put out. I think it's just important to realize that what you are trying to market has value, and that you're not trying to push something that people don't want. They're here because they want it. And you shouldn't feel bad about offering it. It's what they're here for.
That's a great outlook. And it really speaks to one of the big efforts that we try and make, is to kind of clean the taint off of the word marketing, because it does seem to come preloaded with so much negative connotation, and it doesn't have to be that. And so yeah, it's a great thing to bring up whenever we can, and to hear people talk about how that relationship works, where it's not like you're just trying to sell products to your friends. It's that your friends are trying to support you and help you be successful. And there's definitely a huge difference to that. When are you going to hire an assistant?
I laughed so much when I saw that you had that written at the bottom of your notes. It cracks me up, because my mom has always told me from a very young age that I would be great at anything I put my mind to, so long as I had a good assistant. And so it's certainly, I would love to have someone else help me manage all of this, but I think learning how to become my own assistant has been one of the hats that I've had to wear. And It's actually become some of my most enjoyable work. Is the few days in my schedule where I do admin work and I plan out how I'm going to orchestrate a shop update or manage social media or whatever have you. I have a planner that I use religiously to do quarterly goal planning, and I think it's really really important to set goals and break it down into bite-sized pieces. And I love that being my own boss kind of allows me to blend different aspects of my life together in my goal planning. So I can set a goal to be, a better listener to my friends and family, and then also have a goal to do an organized shop update once a month, and also set a goal to maybe meditate or do yoga more frequently. Like, these are all goals I have that all exist in the same place, and I'm able to kind of maintain a healthy balance in my life while also keeping my eye on the prize,
Yeah, I love that. It's going to be exciting. If you were into it, it would be a lot of fun to have you back in another 3 to 6 months to see how a lot of this has sort of evolved. You've mentioned a couple of times that you're still figuring some of this out. You're kind of like new into this process, but I think it really speaks to, how much work you've put into it to, see like how far it's come already in just the relatively, short amount of time that you've been investing into this. So yeah, if you were down for that, I think that would be a great thing to do. There's the thing that you just mentioned about setting goals. That would be a great conversation in itself, because
talk about planning and goal setting for hours. We could absolutely do an entire podcast on that, and I would be elated.
Okay, there you go. It's a deal.
Planning and goal setting is a passion of mine. I have tried every productivity app under the sun and multitudes of planners, and I trying to find the perfect fit. I could talk about the pros and cons of everything, and the importance of not have. It doesn't matter if you have the right app or the perfect list. I've spent so much time building lists and not doing the things on the list. So trying to find what works best to actually produce an outcome is also really crucial.
I would love to have that conversation for myself as much as anybody else, because I am that person where I'm just like, what is the perfect app? And then also like spending a way more time than I should thinking about the list that I'm going to write before I actually make the list, and then like making lists for lists.
Oh, you're preaching to the choir here. I'm still figuring it out, but I think I've finally kind of found the sweet spot in the last 2 weeks, believe it or not. I tried something new in it. I think for the first time it's the right fit for I've tried so many different apps and planners and things, and I always have this excitement at the very beginning, and there's a lot of hope, but I think this is different because it's not that I'm hopeful. I'm actually seeing a result.
Okay, well, say more about that for a minute. What is that?
Sure. Well, there is a YouTuber who posts a lot of really mindful content. I really like it. Her name is Lavendare, but she has an Artist of Life workbook. And it's all about setting goals in all the different areas of your life. And she's got a whole section for quarterly planning. But I think the secret is I wasn't looking for a planner. I was looking for a goal setting workbook or something to help organize my goal planning. Because managing a to-do list is great, but I like to have that automated on a computer if I have reoccurring tasks and I want it to sync with my calendar or whatever. But goal planning is much more personal and self-reflective, and I don't think any app has ever been quite hands-on enough for me. And yeah, it's incredible. And we set goal what money, personal growth, career, health, relationship, home goals for your environment, creative goals, spiritual goals, whatever have you. I mean, it's all there, and you don't have to use everything. Take what suits you and then toss the rest. But that she walks you through designing healthy habits, and then to quarterly planning. There's a self-reflection wheel where you can kind of rate each area of your life on a scale of 1 to 10, and you get a nice visual of actually how well balanced your life really is. And it was incredibly eye opening to me to do that and see that, oh, well, my life purpose and my career and financial and creativity, those scores are pretty high up there. I'm feeling pretty satisfied about that in my life right now. But like maybe my physical well being or mental well being, my relationships and social life, that's the area I need to work. And that's what I was sacrificing for my career. And I realized that, I'm there, I can't max, it's already maxed. I'm already fulfilled and satisfied. I mean, I could be more fulfilled and more satisfied, but what's that actually going to do for me?
Yeah, the time spent on those types of like self reflection projects is really good. When I'm not in it, it's easy for me to sort of like dismiss that as like, well, that's just like time that I'm not spending on like an actual project that I need to be working on or whatever. Or that's distracting me from something else. But then when I do sit down, the times that I have sat down to really like get into something like that, to like take the time to think about those things, it is really beneficial, like, because it does give you like this great perspective. I kind of like an overview sort of thing, which can be so helpful.
Yeah.
So coming into a wrap up, I think, Moose, did you have any follow-up questions so far?
Real quick, I know we mentioned a lot of different platforms, but the one we mentioned, I think, was Patreon. So I'm curious what your thoughts are with doing that as opposed to, or in addition to, Twitch subs.
I think that Patreon is a wonderful platform for a lot of artists, but I don't think it's the right fit for me. I think the whole idea of it, like creating this like exclusive content for people that pay, it's great for people that want that kind of content, but I am already spread so thin that creating exclusive content for a smaller audience that's paying just didn't seem. I can't. I feel like my time is better spent just putting all of that content out on as many platforms as possible. And that's not to say it's the only way. It's just I think it's the best fit for me personally.
Totally.
Well, a couple final questions for you. Where would you like people to go to find out more about you and your work?
It's a great question. Well, website usually covers all the bases there, trishahall.com. Or if you just type in trishahall.com/links, you will get a whole link tree of everything that's actually on my website. So I would direct you to trishahall.com/links because then wherever social media platforms you use, you'll find the button to click. You can join my mailing list where I'll give people like updates of what I've been doing. Whenever there's like sales in my shops or new blog posts, stuff like that. That's kind of to get the Reader's Digest of what I've been doing in my life for the past month. That's the place to go, is to jump onto my mailing list. But yeah, I'll leave it at that because everyone uses different social media platforms, so you'll find it all there.
And there will be links for that in the show notes, as well as like a bunch of other stuff. You've mentioned so many useful gadgets and gizmos. I've taken a bunch of notes, and I'll have to follow up with you on some
I would love to
clarifications
clarify
on
later.
that. Yeah, and we'll have links for a lot of that stuff that we've talked about. Our trademark final question, aside from work and personal projects, what is one thing that you're really excited about right now?
I would have to say we are at a very exciting time nearing the end of the pandemic. It's clearly not over. The end is not totally in sight, but I am now fully vaccinated, and I was able to meet up with some of my friends who are all vaccinated now, and just starting to get a glimpse of some kind of normalcy. I am stoked. I've really been kind of starving myself socially because I really thrive on person to person, like in-person contact. So I'm just really excited to kind of get a little more balance in my life socially, and hopefully dancing venues will open up, because that is something I haven't even talked about. But I almost minored in dance when I was in school, and I do like swing and blues dance and ballroom, and I just love social dancing. And to not have that, I've lost like most of my social life.
I was going to ask if that's what you're using in your TikTok videos.
No, not at all. It's I do partner dance. I don't do solo dance. So when it comes to like dancing on my own, I'm like I have two left feet, I feel like. But if I have a partner to lead or if someone to follow, it's this kind of push and pull of interaction with someone else. It's magic to me.
Well, here's to more of that.
Yeah.
Trisha, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. You're
Couldn't agree more.
a wealth of information, and I do look forward to having you on again. I'm going to wave goodbye here for the sake of the recording.